world moves fast. Your workday? Even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
Badass of the Week is produced by High Five Content and $7 Productions. August 10th, 1628. The sun glints off the ripples of Stockholm harbor, but the real light is coming from the water's surface. Towering over the city's skyline is a behemoth of oak and bronze, the Vasa. This isn't just a ship, it's a floating fortress. A 1,200-ton masterwork of Swedish engineering, designed to dominate the Baltic and strike terror into the hearts of the Polish crown. As it sits at the quay, its two massive gun decks bristle with 64 heavy bronze cannons, their muzzles gleaming like the eyes of a hungry predator. From stem to stern, the hull is a riot of gilded carvings. Lions, Roman emperors, and biblical heroes, all shouting a single message to the world. Sweden has arrived as a naval power. On the shore, thousands of citizens line the docks in a fever of national pride. Among them stand tight-lipped foreign diplomats and spies, sent specifically to witness this incredible display of naval supremacy. They aren't just watching a launch, they are watching the balance of power in Europe shift in real time. The air is thick with the smell of tar, the spray of salt, and the thunderous, rhythmic booming of a ceremonial 64-gun salute. The anchor is hauled. The massive linen sails unfurl, catching the afternoon light as the Vasa begins its maiden voyage. It moves with a slow, heavy majesty, a gilded mountain of wood slicing through the waves. It is, by all accounts, the most awe-inspiring sight in the history of the Swedish Navy. An invincible titan that no enemy fleet can hope to battle. But as the cheers of the crowd reach a deafening crescendo, an invisible enemy awaits on the horizon. It isn't a gale. It isn't a storm. It is a soft, gentle breeze, barely enough to fly a kite, lurking just past the harbor mouth, waiting in ambush to ruin the greatest day in Swedish maritime history. Hello, and welcome back to a very special, very confusing April Fool's Day edition of Badass of the Week. My name is Ben Thompson, and I am joined across the digital void by my partner in historical mayhem, Dr. Pat Larish. Pat, happy April 1st. How many times do you expect to be pranked today?
Oh, Ben, I don't trust anything, especially with the seniors at my school. They make it a tradition. If a chair looks too comfortable, I assume it's a trap. If someone offers me a donut, I assume it's filled with toothpaste. I am living in a state of high alert tactical paranoia.
Good, you should. My mom is like a notorious April Fool's Day prankster, and she finds a way to get me every year, even though I know it's coming. Now she lives with me, so it's like even harder. She lives downstairs, so there's just all kinds of opportunity for traps. Look, so what we should do today is address the elephant in the room. It is April Fool's Day, and I feel like over the last couple of years, people have expected us to come out here and do an episode on something weird or funny, or maybe have some kind of trick involved, some kind of gotcha moment for the episode. But that's not what we're doing today.
No. The gotcha moment. Nope, no trick. Everything we're about to tell you is 100% historically documented, verifiable fact.
Yeah. So we were thinking, if we've done some pretty fun ones in the past, and this year, what we thought we could do is try to take one of the most high profile catastrophic failures in history and, take a story that has kind of lived on as a joke and see if we can prove that it is also to some degree badass.
Yeah. So what would this look like? Instead of a warrior who killed 1,000 dudes, we're doing an episode on, I don't know, a boat that sank in 20 minutes?
Yes, a boat that sank in 20 minutes in front of thousands of gawking, horrified onlookers. It's the ultimate epic fail of the 17th century. It's a story of hubris, golden lions, 64 bronze cannons, and a king who was so badass that he accidentally broke the laws of physics and ended up being overcome by a strong breeze.
Uh-oh. Oh, no. It sounds like the ultimate hold my beer moment of the 1600s.
Yes. So today we're going to talk about the Swedish warship Vasa. It's a tale of absolute humiliation that turned into a 300-year-old redemption arc. It's weird, it's expensive, and against all possible odds, I think we can make it badass. What do you think, Pat?
I think we can.
We're going to make our best effort after this break. Stick with us. All right, welcome back to Badass of the Week. We are doing an epic fail Badass of the Week mashup, I think, here, and we're going to talk about the Swedish warship Vasa. So let's start. It is the early 1600s. Europe is a chaotic, mud-soaked mosh pit of religious wars, shifting borders, and massive empires. If you're looking at the map, you've got all the big heavy hitters at the time in the 1600s. You've got the Holy Roman Empire, France, Russia, England, and Spain. And then up at the top of Europe,
France?
you've got...
Also France?
Also France.
Did you say France? Okay, France.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
They count. They're badass in the 1600s.
Yeah, not really relevant to our story. Yeah, yeah.
So you've got Sweden in this mix here. And at this point of history, Sweden they're holding their own, even though they only have 1.5 million people. So, to put that in perspective, London at this time has 200,000 people. Sweden's got 1.5 million. Places like France have 20 million, right? They're very small population. And, mostly they've got Vikings, but this is beyond the Viking times. So right now, the country is relatively poor. It's really cold up there, and natural resources involve basically rocks, trees, and people who are good at surviving both.
And lichen.
Lichen?
Lichen, the stuff that grows on trees and rocks.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
but so we're kind of giving underdog here.
Yes, underdogs. When you think about early modern Europe, Sweden comes around a lot. You get Charles XII, and there's all these interesting stories about, Sweden being powerful at this time period, even though they're coming from a position of what would be weakness if you inherited this as your army for a total war game or something.
Yeah.
Now, Sweden in the 1600s, early 1600s, they have one thing the rest of the world doesn't, and that is Gustavus Adolphus, the King of Sweden. Now, Gustavus Adolphus isn't just a king, he is a force of nature. He's remembered as the Lion of the North, and he gets this reputation by being, he doesn't give it to himself, he gets that reputation by being just an absolute badass military general. He is a polymath, he speaks 8 languages, he was a theology master, but his real genius was in military tactics. So wars at this time are being fought with something called a push of pike, which is just a bunch of pikes. It's a very boring time period of history, in my opinion, to try to study military history, because it's push of pike is not very interesting to watch. But it was boring for Gustavus Adolphus also. And he was like, maybe we can do something better than this. So he basically reinvents warfare. He invents what's known as modern combined arms warfare, which is basically what we still use today. He integrates the artillery in with the infantry, in with cavalry. He goes back to cavalry charges, kind of institutes those again, realizes they're pretty successful. He mixes in his muskets with his pike, and he changes the way wars are fought by having revolutionary ideas on how to do it. He also doesn't ask his men to do anything he's not willing to do because he leads from the front. He's not 3 miles back. Yeah, he's on the front lines.
Yeah.
He is wounded so many times in his career that he stops wearing metal armor. At this point, like, muskets are not quite strong enough in many cases to penetrate metal armor. It'll bounce off. But he eventually has to get rid of it.
You'd think that would be a good move, right? Wearing metal armor.
You'd think, but he's been wounded so many times in battle that his scars get all irritated when he wears the heavy metal armor. So instead, he switches to like a buff leather coat, and that's all he wears. Like, but he's still the king. He still rides with his flag and everything. Everybody knows he's the king. But he's been wounded so many times that like he can't wear metal armor because it irritates his skin too much. So under his command, Sweden goes from basically the fringes of Europe into like a legitimate world power. He's most famous for the Battle of Breitenfeld in 1631, where he demonstrates a level of tactical brilliance that is still taught in military academies today. He transformed Sweden from a backwater Baltic state into the dominant military force in Europe. He's winning all these battles in the 30 Years' War. He's beloved by his people. He's feared by his enemies. And history kind of considers him the father of modern warfare, and that is not an exaggeration.
Yeah.
So by the middle of the 1620s, his greatest victory won't be for another 10 years, but in the mid-1620s, Stockholm is like on fire. It is a center of culture. Everything the king touches is turning to gold. He's the smartest guy in the room. He's the toughest guy on the battlefield. Sweden has become very prominent across all of Europe as a military power and as a cultural center. And he decides, what else can I do? I need to revolutionize naval warfare the way I've revolutionized land warfare. I'm going to be the father of modern naval warfare as well. So he says, here's what I want to do. I'm going to build something that is going to blow everybody else out of the water, literally. And when he says this, the people of Sweden, they don't even check his math. They don't ask any questions. They just start cutting down trees.
You know what you're doing, Your Majesty.
Yes, clearly you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So by this point, it's the mid-1620s. Gustavus Adolphus has mastered the land. He's revolutionized infantry. He's turned Sweden into a powerful force. Now, one thing that is difficult for Sweden, we know them historically as Vikings, but the Vikings had rowboats, basically, that they sailed down rivers. In order to dominate the Baltic's difficult because a lot of the ports that you would have in the Baltic are frozen most of the year. So it makes it very difficult to build a big navy. Now, he can't build a big navy, but what he decides he wants to do is build a flagship for his new fleet. He wants to build one massive, destructive, killer warship, a floating fortress that'll make his primary enemy at this time is the Poles. He's going to make the Polish Navy just give up the second they see this thing, right? He's going to build a 17th century Death Star.
Oh, that's ambitious.
It is.
And if anyone's going to pull it off, it's this guy, right?
He's a genius.
Okay. Yeah. So what is a 17th century Death Star? What is that going to look like?
Okay. So now we're in 1610 around now, like 1615. To understand the scale, you have to understand what warships of this area are doing right now. We have cannons, we have gunfire, we have gunpowder, muskets, and arquebus and stuff. And at this point, these aren't pirate ships. This isn't Man of War. This isn't HMS Victory. This is 200 years before that. So you have basically a floating wooden box with some cannons on it, a single row of cannons. They're functional, they're sturdy, but Gustavus is like, have we thought about doing something bigger? Have we thought about putting a second row of cannons on top of that first row of cannons? We could build another ship. We could build another deck on our ship and load it up with cannons.
Okay.
So he envisions a ship that is going to break every rule of shipbuilding. It's going to be so heavily armed, it could sink an entire fleet by itself, and so ornate that it would serve as a psychological weapon, like a big golden middle finger to anyone who questions his supremacy on the seas.
Ooh.
Yes. His requirements are ambitious. He wants 2 decks of heavy cannons, which doesn't seem weird now because we've seen HMS Victory in these, but in 1620, England had maybe one of these, Denmark was talking about trying to build one, but nobody had this and nobody was doing this.
So this is new. This is innovative.
Yes, this is unprecedented scale of firepower. To house this, the ship needed to be 1,200 tons, and it needed to be carved from, like, you need to cut down 1,000 ancient oak trees to build it.
That's a lot.
Sweden's got trees, so maybe they can
they do have trees. Yeah, they also have lichen, but I think the lichen is less relevant for shipbuilding.
And then maybe to like cement the cracks or something. I don't know if lichen is waterproof. I think it's not.
Okay, so we're felling oak tree after oak tree. We have to get the oak trees around somewhere. We have to put, oh my goodness, yeah.
Got to haul all this stuff to the shore. You got to build it. 64 bronze cannons. And these cannons are way heavier. They're 24 pounders. And 24 pounder is not the weight of the gun. It's the weight of the cannonball that it fires.
Okay. I was going to say 24 pounds. I can lift 24 pounds. Okay.
Yes.
So you're saying I can lift a cannonball, not one of these cannons.
Cannonball. Yeah. The cannon itself is much heavier than that. It has the weight of a single round that is fired from this gun.
So what can a 24 cannonball do? Like, where will that get me?
It'll blow a hole in the ship. It'll blow a hole in any ship in the world at this time in history. It'll blow through a castle wall. If you could fire, like if you could get a broadside here, it would punch a hole through a castle wall from the middle of the harbor. And this is basically like in Civ, where you just try to like skip 3 levels of the tech tree with one build, just everything, right?
Okay.
And it's so impressive. This is gonna be the most awesome ship ever built. He names it after his own family. He's the royal house of Vasa, so he names the ship the Vasa in its honor.
Okay. So he's literally staking his name on it.
Yes, literally staking his name on it, and he's the king.
Yeah,
and everybody loves him. And he's never been wrong about anything.
Of course, or including crisp bread. So I'm thinking about crisp bread because when you suggested the idea for this episode and you said Vasa, immediately what I thought about was those packages of crisp bread you can buy in some grocery stores around here. Vasa brand, like WASA brand crisp bread. And I'm like, okay.
I've never heard of this, but I'm looking it up. I'm typing it in right now.
No, maybe it was more in other parts of the country that I've been to. But it exists. And
it's like a cracker.
Yeah, basically, a cracker. And so that's the crisp bread. But the Vasa, the ship, it wasn't just about the guns or the crisp bread.
Well, the crisp bread I heard is named after, it looks like on the website here, it's named after the House of Vasa. It's named after the royal family of Sweden.
Yeah.
That makes sense, I guess.
Yeah.
Because it's Swedish.
Exactly. Yes. Warships, crisp bread. Warships, crisp bread. Yes. So
it'll make all the other ships explode like they were made out of crisp bread.
There you go. Yes. So the ship, it's not just about the guns. It's also, Ben, as you said, he wanted the ship to be visually stunning. He wanted to be a literal palace of propaganda. So he commissioned hundreds of intricate hand-carved sculptures to be bolted to the hull. And these are all covered in gold leaf and vibrant paints. And there were Roman emperors, there were lions, like, this is, someone actually literally did write their dissertation on the sculptural decoration of this warship. Okay. I wasn't able to get my hands on it in time for this episode, which is probably just as well, because we have, we're trying to keep
it would have extended the episode by 15 minutes.
At least, yeah. He had Roman emperors, he commissioned lions, lots of lions, more lions, even more lions. Biblical heroes, grotesque depictions of Polish quote-unquote cowards being crushed, because remember, he's got it in for the Polish Navy, And this is supposed to be a flex. This is supposed to be the ultimate flex. It's a weapon of mass destruction, but it looks like a Renaissance cathedral.
Yeah. I think of like, when you look at this thing, because you can see like scale models of it and pictures of it, illustrations of it and stuff. It looks like Warhammer, like Warhammer 40K, like they have these they put all of these sculptures and iconography on the outside of the ship, and it's in service of nothing except to make the thing look cool.
Yeah.
And to scare your enemies and inspire your warriors. But
looking cool actually can serve a purpose in war or even just politically. Yeah. So it's it's like the apex of Swedish engineering. It's also, dare I say, the apex of royal ego. It's a project that is so expensive, it kind of wiped out the national treasury, almost.
And several forests, probably.
Yeah.
It's a sustainable industry, right?
Yes, eventually. Yeah, takes a while, yeah. So is this going to be the final word in naval dominance?
Well, if you were a Swedish citizen walking through the Stockholm shipyards in 1627, you'd have thought it would be. So you could see Vasa being built. It took months, I think years to build this thing. And it probably looked like a spaceship when you were walking through the Stockholm shipyards looking at this thing.
Ooh, yeah.
226 feet long, and it's like 50 something meters tall. It's like a skyscraper, like a wooden sky. It's taller than any of the buildings in the city.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's popping up out of the water here. And it's a time when naval vessels were designed to be utilitarian. They were warships, and you used the minimum amount of lumber required to build a seaworthy warship, and then you blasted other warships with it until it sunk. And this was not that, as you said. This was a propaganda machine. This was a statement of absolute, unadulterated power. It's the 17th century equivalent of a billionaire super yacht crossed with a nuclear-armed battleship.
And of course, since this is Sweden, you had to construct the thing yourself using nothing but an Allen wrench and some ambiguous cartoon instructions.
Right. IKEA bin 45 for the gun casings. Yes.
Okay,
so
okay. This is not a Billy bookshelf. Okay. This is much more elaborate.
Yes. So, I mean, yeah, the scale is staggering, right? It requires at this time a crew of 145 sailors to operate just the rigging, 300 more guys to man the guns. So you'd have 500 crew members on this ship for 64 cannon. And it was the aesthetics, like you said, that separate this from everything else in the world at this time.
Well, the aesthetics and also the gunpowder.
Yeah, the firepower.
Hey, let's be honest. Okay, it's aesthetics and oomph.
But that's part of it, right? He has the cannons made out of bronze and polished, so they gleam in the sunlight.
Of course, yeah.
Right? You can blind your enemies before you shoot them with the cannons.
I mean, the enemy just says, "Oh my goodness," yeah, he's blinding them with superior gunpowder.
Science?
Yeah, both.
Maybe not superior science. We'll get to that in a minute.
Spoilers.
But the ship rises 60 feet above the water. It's a vertical wall of propaganda covered in 500 hand-carved sculptures that are not just decorative, but they're basically a diss track carved in wood. They have, like you said, depictions of Roman emperors like Tiberius, Septimius Severus, who the king of Sweden thought he was descended from, or at least a successor to. It's got a 10-foot tall golden lion representing Gustavus Adolphus himself. And like you said, figures of cowering Polish nobles hiding under tables to escape him.
Yes. Yeah. This is not just a ship. It is a 1,200-ton gold leaf billboard for Sweden. How IKEA stores, I think, I don't know if they actually are, but they feel like they're visible from space.
Yes.
Okay. This is like that, only way more detailed.
Yeah.
It's not just like a big word that's saying Vasa. It's like every possible surface, square inch of the surface is covered with some sort of sculpture.
Covered in golden lions or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's very busy. It looks like a mashup between a cuckoo clock and a Chuck E. Cheese on steroids.
Yeah, it's red. It's painted red. We haven't mentioned that yet. It's gold leaf, but it's painted red.
Yeah. Yeah. We are not going for stealth here.
No.
Yeah. So, okay, we could talk about the symbolism of the lion, except I think it's pretty obvious. It's the king of beasts, and it's also already associated with Gustavus Adolphus. In particular, people started calling him the Lion of the North. Okay, we'll put it on the ship. And there's a lot of imagery, a lot of iconography from ancient Rome and ancient Greece. This is, in general, an idealized antiquity showing that, hey, Sweden's having its own renaissance. And, in particular, Ben, you mentioned these Roman emperors. They actually have a whole line of Roman emperors, one after the other. It's a history lesson if you want. And it's giving content.
In case you forget.
In case you forget. Yeah. Okay, here's Tiberius, here's Caligula, here's Nero. Okay, there's Domitian. Oh, there's Septimius Severus, okay. And it gives an air of continuity and authority to King Gustav of Sweden.
Oh, he puts himself at the end. Here's all the emperors in order.
Exactly,
and there's, that's me at the end. There's that 10-foot tall giant lion.
Yes. Woo, we're building an empire. Woo. And okay, I'll be honest, some of the iconography is honestly kind of puzzling. No wonder someone wrote a dissertation on it. There's an image of a Roman guy trampling another guy's head. And this whole thing, this is actually Tiberius. This is in the Tiberius slot in the parade of emperors, if you will. And okay, this is puzzling. Tiberius was not traditionally considered one of the best emperors. So why do we have a guy trampling another guy? Maybe some scholars interpret this as actually crushing Tiberius's excesses and vices. I don't know,
Or
Ben, are you
maybe
skeptical?
Gustavus Adolphus was like really just thought it was cool. Like, I love crushing people. Like, man, Tiberius crushed people. This is great.
Okay.
Let's do it. It looks. There's a thing I saw one time going back to Warhammer. Like the Space Marine armies have dudes on motorcycles. And I remember reading a Reddit thing once where it was like, why do they have guys on motorcycles that carry chains and stuff? Is that like would that be viable for like military tactics in the current? It's like, no, it's because the guys who came up with this were just watching a lot of Excalibur in the 80s and were really into death metal. Like, they just thought this looked cool, so they're doing it. It was like, make him step on his head.
Yes. Yeah. Now, even more puzzling. Okay, so the Tiberius, some guy stepping on another guy's head. Okay, it's cool. It's badass. It's giving "don't mess with me" or "I will crush your skull," or whatever. You could write a dissertation on it. But even more puzzling in this line of Roman emperors, and they're just going chronologically. The one emperor that doesn't show up is Augustus.
He's an important one.
Yeah, he's the first. I would say he's the OG imperator, if you will. He
is literally, right? He's the first one.
Okay, yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So some people interpret this as being that, oh, okay, so who is filling the role of Augustus? Oh, Gustavus Adolphus.
Yeah, more like Gustavus Augustus.
Yeah. He's the Augustus of Sweden. Yeah. Sure, But also, speaking of OG badasses, Augustus is deeply problematic, but he's also indisputably badass.
Yeah, he is.
Okay, he is. Okay.
We have to talk about him at some point. We haven't done an
we
episode on him
totally
yet, but
do.
I've written
Yeah.
about him on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
website, and we got to do him at some point.
But, okay, we've also got another OG badass, this time from Greek mythology, Hercules.
Hey, episode 1, badass of the week.
OG
yes,
badass.
our OG
Yeah.
badass, Hercules.
Yeah.
He keeps coming up.
Everybody
wants to be him.
Actually, kind of, yeah. So on the Vasa, he's depicted twice. Both times you can identify him with his characteristic lion skin. And in one, he's got Renaissance-style armor on because that was actually kind of a thing in art of the period. If you're depicting warriors from antiquity, you make them wear, quote, modern armor.
I've seen this a lot in paintings and stuff.
Yeah. You get used to it. And he's standing on the head of the Nemean lion. He's accompanied by a dog because why not? And then in the other sculpture, he's not wearing anything aside from the strategically draped lion skin. But, he's got his club. He's holding a creature by the leash. And I think people interpret this as Cerberus, although I only saw one head in the pictures I was able to see. But, hey, this is a creature on a leash. It's Cerberus,
Gotta be.
Yeah. You don't
want
want
a lion skin. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're taking some creative license with it.
Yeah. Mythology kind of invites creative license, right?
Definitely.
So you've also got biblical references. So we've got Roman history, we've got Greek mythology, we've got biblical references.
Got it.
You've got
at this point, right? 1620. They're in the middle of the 30 Years' War, right? There's a big war going on over religion that Gustavus Adolphus is fighting currently. So,
and also, didn't you say he
stuff.
had an advanced degree in theology or something along those lines?
Yes.
So, okay. Yeah. So, can you be religious and badass? Well, Gustavus Adolphus would like to think so. He makes sure that he's got sculptures of, Gideon and his 300 guys fighting off the much larger army of the Midianites. And you've also got King David and his harp, which, okay, on the one hand is he's really cultured. But on the other hand, this is David how did he get his start?
He killed Goliath. He was big. Gideon's got the small army. David's got the little slingshot. This is a small country that has made a big, big, big ship that is going to smash everybody else.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it doesn't matter if you're how big you are, you can still be powerful.
Yes.
I feel like that's a lesson that could have been learned a little earlier.
There's so many ways to take this, Ben. You know, and with Gideon and King David, or David at any stage in his life, these are supported by divine will. So, what is the message? Taking down an enemy will be a breeze. Why are you laughing, Ben? Spoilers.
What could go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? And okay.
If we had a 4-ton sculpture of King David to the side of our ship up near the top, it's going to be great. God's going to love that, right?
Okay, so a lot of the sculptures we were talking about are on the outside to be seen by, other people, outsiders. Maybe the good townspeople of Stockholm as they're watching the ship sail off, or maybe by, I don't know, the Polish Navy.
Right, or enemies, because when this is being built, Gustavus Adolphus's people are having foreign diplomats brought, because it's Stockholm, right? It's the capital. The foreign embassies and the foreign ambassadors that come, they're walking past this thing on their way to meetings, like negotiations and stuff. So foreign diplomats are seeing this thing being built, and they're like, "What is this?" Like, it's like, imagine seeing like the Death Star in dock, or like a Star Destroyer being built, and you're like, "This is going to be trouble if they finish this thing."
Now, the thing is, as you mentioned before, Ben, this ship is going to be crewed by several hundred good, upstanding Swedish sailors, right? And, they're people too. And,
right.
We got to keep their morale up. So one of the details of the sculpture is that, so those carvings of the Polish noblemen.
Right, cowering under tables. Yeah,
they're cowering under tables because I think anyone in any culture would recognize this as a diss on the Polish nobleman, like, ha, 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 But also, okay, I am told by the internet that at this time there was a custom in Poland. There was a tradition that if someone pissed off their friends, they could apologize by barking off. I don't. But this would consist of going under a table, and while you are under the table, you would confess to whatever you had done that offended your friends.
It's barking off.
You
offend your friends. You offend your friends, and you climb under the dinner table, and you be like, "I'm sorry, it was me that I ate the extra cookie." I do feel like this is something that my 5-year-old does, actually. Okay.
Well, I mean, it's a venerable tradition, Ben.
Yes.
Now, here's the thing. Okay, so we've got, first of all, visually, this is going to be look kind of ridiculous to anyone who sees it.
Not only are they cowering, but it's common knowledge at the time that this is a thing. So they're confessing their horrible sins and also cowering under a table.
Yes.
Amazing.
Now, also, where might a sailor on the Vasa have a good vantage point for seeing these carved, contrite, cowering Polish noblemen? And they're Polish because they've got typical Polish mustaches. It's like activate all the stereotypes.
Caricature is just like a cartoon in the newspaper version of this.
Yeah.
I can't even begin to guess.
You could see them from the beakhead, which is where are located the toilets.
Excellent. Awesome. Love it. He thought of everything when he built this thing.
Like you said, the dude was bright.
Yes.
Yeah.
Innovative, morale boosting. In World War II, they put pinup pictures in the bunks, and now they're putting in the Vasa, they're putting your cowering enemies in the toilet.
Yep.
Where they belong. Okay. So beneath all this fantastic art lies the hardware, which is the guns. Now, most ships of the line at this time, because cannons are heavy and the boat has to float, they would carry a mix, light, medium, and heavy cannons. The light cannons were great because you could pick them up and move them to different parts of the boat, so you could concentrate firepower in certain areas, call them chase guns, stuff like that. But the Vasa is not designed for that. The Vasa, Gustavus Adolphus has become the father of modern warfare by inventing new tactics. And his tactic here is to put the biggest guns he can find, cannons everywhere, pointing in every direction, The cannons themselves, there's 64 of them. They weigh together over 80 tons. And,
oh my goodness, 80 tons.
80 tons. With
That's
a single broadside, the Vasa could fire 600 pounds of shot, basically 600 pounds of cannonball.
Wow.
Which was enough to turn any contemporary ship into toothpicks with like a single volley.
Bam.
Now, it's designed to be faster, taller, more heavily armed than anything that has ever touched the water, especially the Baltic Sea, right? The English have a good navy. There's powerful navies in the world at this time.
Oh, yeah. But those are on the Atlantic, or they're on oceans that don't freeze over on the regular.
Right. And on paper, this is kind of an act of genius, right? He doesn't want to build a huge navy because he doesn't have that many warm water ports. He's going to build one flagship, the pride of Sweden, the envy of the world. It's his personal obsession. He's the most powerful man in Europe, and he's going to make sure this thing has everything it needs to conquer the seas almost by itself. So, okay, in any massive engineering project, there are going to be some tweaks to the design over the process.
Of course. Yeah, the engineers, okay. The client comes back and they say, can we have this? The engineers, okay, they roll their eyes politely and then they say, okay, they find a way to make it work.
Right. This is not like, you usually have to add a few extra features, move a deadline, let's paint it red, paint a different shade of red. Now, for these guys building this ship, these design tweaks come through, and they're coming from the king, who is an absolute monarch who believes he was divinely appointed by God to rule over you. He's also the most successful general in Europe. So when he makes a suggestion for a tweak, it's a little more than just a suggestion.
Yes.
Now, originally, the Vasa was supposed to be a smaller, more traditional-looking warship. It would still be big and powerful, but it was going to kind of look like what everybody else was doing. But as construction's beginning, Gustavus Adolphus starts hearing rumors that the Danish are building a ship with 2 gun decks. And the English already have 1 or 2. And the king of Sweden is like, all right, he starts sending letters. He's at war when this is going on. He's on battlefields in Poland, commanding armies with great success. He's stomping his way through the Holy Roman Empire in Poland. He's defeating everybody that comes across him. Yes, with his buff leather jacket. That is how it's described, as a buff leather jacket. So I kept it that way, which for me, I picture like the abs like carved into it. You know what I mean? Like the Batman suit.
An anatomical cuirass is what we call it when we're looking at Roman statues.
Excellent. Yeah, that's what I'm picturing. And it seems like it would fit full of medals and things. Just because he's not wearing his metal armor doesn't mean he didn't look fancy when he was going to war, I bet.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, he is coordinating most of this by correspondence. He's coordinating a lot of this. He's from the home office. He's remoting into work via letters. And
fast courier.
Yes. A dude on a horse is his version of Zoom. And he's like, okay, we're adding a second gun deck. And the Vasa needs to be lengthened and it needs to be narrowed because it needs to be faster in the water. So it needs to be skinnier, longer, and it needs a second tier of 24-pounder cannons.
So that means it would be heavier?
A little heavier, a little skinnier, a little taller.
Okay. Isn't there a Daft Punk song about this or something?
I feel like there might be.
Okay.
The guy who is in charge of building the ship, the lead shipbuilder, is a guy named Henrik Hybertson. And he's the best shipbuilder in Sweden. And now he's given a very difficult task. He has to accommodate the king's demands for more guns, taller ship, but also narrower and faster. So what's he going to do? He's going to build a skyscraper on top of a canoe. All right.
I'm sorry. Can I just, I'm just trying to visualize that. A skyscraper on top of a canoe.
That's basically what the Vasa is going to look like when it's done. Yeah. Now, luckily for him, he gets sick and dies mid-project.
Luckily for him. Okay.
Yes.
So he's a shipbuilder. He's an engineer. So, this is probably causing him a lot of distress. I mean, did the poor guy die of stress? My heart goes out to this guy. I want to be him up until the point where he gets that letter from the king. You know,
it was probably a great gig until that happened. And
he sounds pretty badass. He sounds badass, and then he just nopes out of it.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
So he dies, and
do you think he just faked his death and then just went off and lived in the country just to be away from the king? That's my headcanon. That's what I want to believe. Anyway.
So his assistant takes over. His assistant has to come over. His assistant now has to finish a design that defies the laws of physics. So he knows the math doesn't add up here, but it's 1627. His boss is the most powerful man in Europe and doesn't want to have no for an answer. So great. I don't want to get my head put on a pike, so I'm going to just do what he says.
Okay. So does this count as a badass bingo card? Can we tick off a badass bingo card? Because it is a head on a stick, but it's a hypothetical head on a stick.
I think it has to be an actual head on a stick. I think the threat of head on stick doesn't quite qualify. I think if you're keeping score at home, it has to be actually on the stick, which might still happen. Stick around.
Okay.
Okay. Now, by the time the ship is nearing completion, there are warning signs everywhere. The captain is a guy named Suffering Hansen, and he looks at this thing, and they're like, this is your ship. You're going to command the most powerful ship in Europe. Here it is. And he's like, I'd like to run a stability test on this thing.
That sounds like a good idea.
Sounds like a good idea. Yeah. He takes 30 guys. It's on the dock. It's parked, basically. And he takes 30 sailors and he has them stand on one side of the deck against the railing. And then they run as fast as they can to the other side. And they stop. And then they run back to the first side again.
How'd that go?
Kind of like you're trying to shake like a roller coaster, trying to shake like a Ferris wheel card swing.
Yeah, this seems like a reasonable test to run.
Yes. On the first pass, the ship tilts. On the second, it groans. And on the third, the Vasa rocks so violently that the captain orders his men to stop because he's worried the ship is going to capsize at pier. So he runs to his boss, the vice admiral, Claus Fleming, and he's like, dude, if the way he says it is great. The quote is something like, if only the king were here to see this.
Oh, my goodness.
But he's not. He's at war. And it's like,
yeah.
I wish you could.
And you can't just shoot a video on your phone and text it to the king.
No, this is not going to work. This is not work. This did not work. It's not seaworthy. Now, does Claus Fleming call the king? Does he delay the launch? No. He does what any terrified middle manager does when the CEO is a tyrant. He keeps his mouth shut. He loads 80 tons of bronze cannons, and he prays for a miracle.
Yeah, the last part seems the most important.
Yes, it's already cost a fortune. It's consumed the larger part of the major oak tree forest in Sweden. It's beautiful, terrifying. It's the most expensive weapon in history. And he's like, we can't. It's done. We got to go. And so they're going to set sail and they're going to put this thing to sea and see what happens. We're going to take a quick break. And after we come back, we're going to see how this works out for him. Now, while we're on break, maybe we can put a question out to the audience. What's the dumbest thing your boss has ever told you to do? You can leave a note. You can leave a note in the comment.
Yes. Yes.
All right, we'll be right back.
The best summer memories are made outside, and LL Bean has the clothing and gear you need to make these memories. Their effortless styles are created for summers spent outside with family and friends. Like hand-sewn boat shoes, coastal cotton sweaters, rugged polos, and, of course, the iconic Boatin' Tote, which has been made right here in Maine since 1944. LL Bean. Be an outsider. Visit llbean.com to learn more.
The problem with radio is we can't show you our new box packed with a KFC snacker, 5 nuggets, fries, and a drink for just $7. So you'll just have to trust us when we say the crispy golden fried breading will make your mouth water. You'll have to trust us when we say this is a ridiculous amount of chicken for such a small price. And you'll have to really trust us when we insist that, yes, it really is only $7. $7 box feast from KFC. Trust us, it's finger-licking good.
Prices and participation may vary. Tax, tips, and fees extra.
All right, it is August 10th, 1628, and it's supposed to be the greatest day in Swedish naval history. The sun is shining over Stockholm. The harbor is packed with thousands of cheering citizens, foreign diplomats, the entire Swedish royal court. This is the moment of triumph. The Vasa has sat at the quay of the royal castle forever. Her 64 bronze cannons are gleaming. Hundreds of gold leaf sculptures are shimmering in the sunlight. She looks like a god of war carved from oak. And Captain Suffering Hansen, he gives the order. The anchors are weighed, and the massive ship is towed along the waterfront until she reaches the open water of the harbor. 4 huge sails are unfurled. The Vasa catches the wind, and for a few glorious moments, she looks like the world-conquering naval vessel she's supposed to be. She fires a thunderous royal salute from all 64 cannons. The smoke fills the air. The crowd on the shore, they roar in approval. And then the wind picks up just a little bit. It's a light squall, the kind of breeze that maybe wouldn't tilt a standard fishing boat, but it catches those 4 massive towering sails. And the ship is a skyscraper built on top of a canoe. It's top heavy, it's narrow, it heels over to the port side, and the crowd watching gasps as the massive hull tilts and then slowly rights itself. And then a second stronger gust hits it, tips it over, and the lower gun ports, which had been shoved open to show off the legendary bronze cannons, they dip below the waterline, and thousands of gallons of the Baltic Sea begins pouring into the hull. There is no recovery. There's no bailing this out. There's no all hands on deck. In full view of the entire city, the king's family, the Polish nobles who were depicted crawling around on the ground in the bathrooms, the most expensive, most powerful, most badass ship ever built slides sideways and sinks into the Baltic. It takes less than 20 minutes, which is about twice the time we've been recording this episode. And the ship is gone.
So our episode as of right now is 2 Vasas long.
2 Vasas long, yeah.
Do we have a new unit of time?
The ship weighed 1,200 tons and it traveled 1,300 meters, less than a mile. It sinks. The masts are still sticking out of the water. The flags are still fluttering in the breeze. 30 sailors are caught below decks and drown, trapped by the cannons they were supposed to use to destroy the earth. And the cheering stops. The band stops playing. The Lion of the North has just watched his Death Star become an expensive artificial reef.
Womp, 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 womp.
When news of the Vasa sinking reaches King Gustavus Adolphus, he's at war with Prussia when this happens. It sinks in front of his family. It's more dramatic. I took a little dramatic license by putting him on the dock, but he's actually at war with Prussia on the battlefield, commanding armies to victory. He gets a letter, and he doesn't just get angry. He goes completely nuclear.
Hey, wait, nuclear hasn't been invented yet. You mean metaphorically?
I mean, metaphorically, he explodes like a nuclear warhead with rage.
Okay. He explodes like a weapon that has not been invented yet, but which he would probably have been excited about if he had heard about it. Okay.
He would have put it on the Vasa.
Yeah.
He could have
We'll see how that goes.
Nuclear bomb projector. He would have put it on the hull. Yes, this is not a maritime accident. This is a personal insult. This is a waste of his subjects' taxes. It's a massive blow to Sweden's international tough guy reputation. He sends a letter back to Stockholm, and he's like, whoever's responsible for this, I want them dead.
Did the letter get returned to sender?
Well, the letter arrives at the royal court, and they're like, well, whose fault is this? I don't know. So they arrest the captain. They arrest Suffering Hansen. They're like, it's probably your fault. You messed up. You were drunk.
Was he?
So they take him to court. The inquest begins September 1628 at the Royal Castle in Stockholm. The prosecutors go after Hansen with everything they have. They accuse him of being drunk, of not securing the cannons, of failing to handle the sails correctly. But the captain is pretty badass. Remember, he ran that stress test and he knew it was going to fail. He told them it was going to fail. He he's already stared down a watery grave. 30 of his men died, right? And he reminds the court that he had warned the admiral about the failed lurch test. And he says, quote, "You can chop me into 1,000 pieces if every single cannon was not properly lashed and secured. And I swear before God Almighty that no one on board was drunk."
Yeah, you go, Captain.
You go, Captain. So they're like, all right, we can't get this guy. So they move to the shipbuilder. Now, the original shipbuilder's dead. So they find Heinz Jacobsen, who's the guy who took over after Heinrich Hybertson died. Jacobsen's defense is amazing. He pulls out the original blueprints for the ship, which were done according to the proportions provided to him by Master Heinrich and stamped and signed by His Majesty, King Gustavus Adolphus. Now, he says, his quote is also great. He says, "The ship was built according to the proportions provided by my master and approved by His Majesty. God only knows which one is at fault."
Do. So this is like he's saying, I followed the plans to the millimeter. And who signed those plans? Oh, right, the king. Oh, except we're paraphrasing because millimeters haven't been invented yet.
Yes. So now the court's in big trouble because if they blame the builders, they were blaming the king because he signed off on the extra guns and the narrow hull. If they blame the admiral, they were going to destroy the credibility of the Swedish Navy. So, Pat, what do you think they did?
Oh, I don't know. Did they find some poor, rank and file sailor to take the fall? I don't know. I'm not the Swedish elite. What do I do,
They did a very 17th century thing. They said, the final report says, everything was built according to the king's proportions and its sinking was an act of God.
So, okay. So we can read between the lines and nothing happens?
Nothing happens. Nobody gets in trouble. The Vasa is left to rot in the mud because they can't pull it out. It's 1,200 tons. They don't have the equipment to pull it out. It sinks into the mud and is lost. And that's the end of it. They can't salvage anything. It's such an embarrassment that the Swedish government just does everything they can to forget it ever happened. For the next 300 something years, the Death Star is at the bottom of Stockholm Harbor and is lost to time.
Because the mud, in general, and also because the mud, the silt, it keeps shifting anyway, right?
Right. And so they can't, after a certain point, the mud, it's dark, it's cold, the water's brackish, you can't see to the bottom of it, obviously. And over time, things shift. Over 300 years, things shift. And at some point, and ships just get destroyed, right? There are shipworms that eat the wood, and it's wood. If it's wooden things sitting at the bottom of the ocean don't last very long. And
no, they don't. Yeah,
that's it. It's
wood disappears. Yeah.
Except, now we've been dunking on Sweden a lot, but this is where the story gets really interesting, Pat.
Yes. If it hasn't been enough already. So,
well, this is where it starts to take a badass turn. How about that?
Exactly. Yeah.
Gustavus Adolphus is badass, and he's an extremely badass guy. We'll probably do a whole episode on him at some point.
Yeah.
But this
was his one anti-badass moment.
This was his one miscalculation in his career.
Yeah. So
it was an expensive one.
Oh my goodness, yes. And it was wasting the Swedish taxpayers' money. So that was in 1628. But then fast forward to the 1950s and enter Anders Franzen. Who is Anders Franzen? Well, he's not a professional archaeologist. He's not a naval officer. He's an amateur historian and a fuel engineer with a singular badass obsession. He started off studying, of all things, naval architecture at the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm, but he actually kind of got more interested in history. Ben, you understand, right?
I understand.
Yeah. And he actually didn't graduate, but things turned out okay for him. He got a job with BP, British Petroleum, and then he later worked for the Swedish Naval Administration as a fuel engineer.
Okay, seems like a good gig.
Yeah, but that was his day job. His passion project, however, was trawling through archives. Remember, I said he liked history. He was trawling through archives for information on old shipwrecks, of which the Swedish Navy had had several over the centuries. He
I don't
had
know if
a
you ever
list
read
of...
any Clive Cussler, but this guy sounds like Dirk Pitt, honestly.
Fair. Yeah. He had a list of candidates. He had there were maybe a dozen ships that might somehow, one way or another, be somehow findable, maybe. But what condition would these shipwrecks be in? And, Ben, you and I were speculating about what would happen to the Vasa now that it's sunk to the bottom of Stockholm Harbor and,
crushed under the mud or
Yeah.
sort of just eaten by shipworms or whatever.
Yeah. So this was in the early 1950s. And, the rest of the world was actually kind of obsessed with the space race, but Franzen was looking at the bottom of the ocean. And he thought, the Baltic Sea. Ben, you mentioned shipworms.
Mm-hmm.
But the Baltic Sea does not actually have Pterodo navalis, which is the scientific name for the shipworm that eats wooden holes in saltier oceans. It's actually a type of mollusk, but people call it a worm because it's kind of long and skinny and whatever. But the conditions of the Baltic Sea mean that maybe a ship that sank in 1628, even a ship that's made of wood, it might still be there.
Because it's cold and it kind of preserves a little because it's colder. It doesn't have doesn't have the right kind of mollusks that'll eat the wood. Interesting. Okay.
So Anders Franzen is saying, interesting, but in Swedish. And so he has a goal to work towards, okay? He's spending his weekends, okay, maybe some people go out and fish on the weekends, okay? What Franzen is doing is spending his weekends going out on a boat and dragging a homemade coring tool. And this is kind of a metal pipe, on a rope, and he drags it along the harbor. Yeah, he drags it along the harbor floor, and he's trying to pick up stuff with it. So he's a one-man search party in a motorboat, and he's ignored by the experts. He's mocked by the locals. Okay, yeah, Anders, that's Anders.
There goes
okay.
Anders with this metal, dragging that metal pipe around again.
Yeah. Okay, but he's harmless. Okay. And he spent years pulling up old tires, rusty buckets, and dead fish. And he said, he's quoted as saying that some of the things he found are better off not being talked about. I have no idea what he's referring to here, but oh my goodness. And I don't know if any of our listeners play Stardew Valley, but I've played it, and there's this little fishing game you can do. And I spent the longest time sucking at fishing, and I would always play it. I would always pull up old newspapers instead of whatever species of fish I was supposed to do the side quest. So, but if I pull up old newspapers or a soda can, I can say, hey, I'm just like Anders Franzen.
That's right.
But I kind of gave up on
garbage out of Stockholm Harbor.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
That's a service,
Yeah. And, okay, bit by bit. But he never stopped. And you gotta admire this guy.
Yeah, he's like the ultimate underdog. He doesn't have a budget. He doesn't have a team. He just a dude with a map and a pipe and the stubbornness for which the Swedish people are well known.
Yes. Not just when putting together IKEA furniture. So 1956. What's this? The pipe hits something solid, and Franzen hauls it back up, and he doesn't find mud. What he found was a plug of solid black oak.
Ooh.
He moves the boat. He drops the pipe again. More oak. Did he find it? It wasn't just a shipwreck. It was a 300-year-old time capsule.
Yes. And when the first divers go down into the pitch black 100-foot deep water, they expect a collapsed ruin. They expect just nothing, right? He thinks he's found the Vasa, and he goes down there and he finds this core of oak, and they send divers down. And these divers come up and they were like, oh my God, it's there. The whole ship intact. Gun ports still open. The ship that had been Sweden's greatest embarrassment, it's there and it's fully up. It's still standing upright. Now, this is cool, but finding it is not the same thing as raising it up out of the water, because this thing, remember, weighs 1,200 tons. It's waterlogged oak in the mud. Now we've got a challenge. The Swedish government has a challenge on its hand. We found
We're
the
not
ship.
just pulling up an old Coke can or something.
Right. This thing is going to smash into toothpicks if you try to just grab it and yank it with a winch or something. This is going to require a level of engineering that would have been completely impossible during the time of Gustavus Adolphus. This is not even like a salvage operation because, Pat, I think you probably have some familiarity, I'd imagine, with archaeology. Like, you can't just grab these old things. You can't just dig them up with a shovel and pull them out of the ground.
Oh, no. No. Yeah.
This is a high-stakes surgical procedure on a 1,200-ton patient made of soggy wood. So the ship has been resting in a deep cradle of blue clay for 333 years.
That sounds almost, I don't know, prophetic or something.
Something like that,
33 years. Anyway. Yeah. Okay. So, but in practical terms, we're stuck in blue clay, which sounds not easy to get out of.
No. And if you yank this thing, you're going to snap it in half, right? You're going to pull up the top part of this thing and you're going to leave the bottom part in there. So, okay, what ends up having to happen here is the Swedes are going to have to pull off one of the most dangerous underwater construction projects undertaken in history. The plan is bold. They have to use high-pressure water jets to blast 6 tunnels directly through the clay underneath the ship's hull. They're going to chip it out. They're going to cut holes in the clay underneath the ship, then basically run chains and pull the whole piece up, including the clay underneath it. So this involves divers in the 1950s in heavy canvas suits or brass helmets. They're crawling into a dark, narrow hole 100 feet below the surface. And if the Vasa shifts even an inch, you're going to get squished into a human pancake by 1,200 tons of Vasa. And this is a ship that is cursed, right? It's sunk on its first ship, its first attempt.
It didn't pass the lurch test. It didn't pass the stability test.
Right. And now you've got to climb underneath it with an air vent and dig a hole.
Whew.
You're tunneling underneath this thing in the 50s in brackish water in the Baltic Sea, which is cold. It's dark. You can't see anything, right? It's cloudy water. Then they have to thread massive steel cables through those tunnels they've made, basically creating a giant sling to cradle the Death Star. And over the course of months, they do it. And when they complete it, they don't just lift a ship. They perform 100-foot deep magic trick with water jets, steel cables, and that same stubbornness that we keep coming against when we talk about the Swedes.
And in the 1950s, there was an invention that helped with this a lot. Neoprene wetsuits, invented by a Berkeley physicist. And this job would have been impossible without them. Yeah,
that seems likely. You wouldn't want to go down to the bottom of the of the Baltic Sea without a wetsuit.
Yeah.
Or a dry suit at least. Okay.
Yeah.
So
we're creating the sling under the Vasa, and that's a non-trivial endeavor.
Right. So on April 24th, 1961, the Vasa is slung by these cables, and several ships are in the harbor, and they lift it. And the Vasa breaks through the surface for the first time since the reign of Gustavus Adolphus. People are lined up on Stockholm harbor shore, thousands of them, just like they were when the ship sank 333 years ago. And the black oak of the flagship sees the sun again.
Wow.
This time, the cheers aren't for a weapon of war that's going to conquer the earth. It's for the miracle of engineering and preservation. The ship is so well preserved by the cold water that when they pump the mud out of the hull, the Vasa actually floats on its own.
Really?
Yeah. Maybe even better than before.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Okay, now here's the problem, and I imagine, Pat, you run into this with some archaeology stuff too, because the minute you get this thing out of the water, it's going to start disintegrating.
Yeah, because we're in a different context. Instead of the water where you have less oxygen, you're now in the air. It's going to dry out.
Mm-hmm. And if the wood dries up too fast, the plant cells will collapse. The ship will literally crumble into sawdust in front of everybody's eyes. So there's no easy solution for this.
No.
The way they deal with this is they move it into a climate-controlled hull and they continuously spray it with polyethylene glycol, which is a water-soluble wax. They spray it with wax for 17 years. It's a nearly 2 decade long wax bath that preserves the ship.
And the polyethylene glycol, it actually, there's water that's kind of stuck, absorbed in the wood fibers, and the polyethylene glycol is wax that replaces the water.
Okay,
It's I think kind of similar to the process of the way wood becomes petrified, except it's with wax. So yeah. And so we've got it. We're stabilizing it, and we're like, okay, this is this huge thing. And Ben, you mentioned that it was red. Like, visually it is red. It was painted red. And obviously the paint wears off in the water, but you have traces of the pigment here and there. So a team of scientists, chemists, and engineers are able to figure out exactly what shade of red the hull was painted. So, So for the replica at the museum, they're able to match it. You can
pull off they put it like a whatever mass spectrometer or whatever the tool would be. This tiny fleck of just demolished paint, and they can figure out what shade of red it was.
Yeah, and it's not just the dominant background shade of red. They also were able to figure out all of the different pigments for all of the sculptures. Like imagine, Hercules wearing the lion's skin. His hair would be one color, his skin would be one color, the lion's skin would be another color, the mane of the lion's skin would be another color. So it seemed like they were able to actually figure out a lot of that.
That seems like a pretty impressive project as well. To do that without destroying the small sample you have. Yeah,
go science.
Yeah. So, okay, today the Vasa sits in her own custom-built museum in Stockholm. It's 98% original. It is almost completely intact. It's no longer a symbol of royal hubris or a failure of naval architecture. Instead, it's the most important time capsule in naval history. It's a masterpiece of 17th century art. All those sculptures, all those lions, all the paintings, the Polish nobles, they're all there. They're all intact. And it's also a monument to the Swedish engineers who refused to let her stay buried, people like Anders Franzen. She's in a museum now, and it is the most visited museum in Scandinavia. And the Vasa now is the only, because these shipworms have eaten all these old ships, or old ships were just broken down and the wood was repurposed into new ships. The Vasa is the only surviving example of a 17th century European naval vessel.
Oh, wow.
So you can go there today and you can see it. King Gustavus Adolphus, he survives this slight embarrassment. He wins the Battle of Breedenfield 10 years later. He's a national hero to this day. He is an undeniable badass, one of the most badass kings and warriors and military commanders that ever lived. And he was proven, to be kind of right about the Vasa. He wanted to build a ship that would make Sweden immortal. He wanted a badass of the week quality warship. It took 333 years and a very long detour through the mud, but eventually the king got his timeless ship. And that is badass.
Yeah. And people are very fond of this warship.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember Vasa brand crisp bread?
I remember you talking about it. I looked it up.
Yeah. So apparently even the polyethylene glycol treatment isn't perfect. And in 2004, the warship Vasa did need serious repairs. And so the Vasa Crisp Bread Company pledged to donate a certain amount, 50 öre, which is half a krona, which is like just a few cents, from the sale of each packet of crisp bread. They pledged to donate this towards the repairs for the Vasa. And it totaled $1.2 million over 3 years to help preserve its namesake.
Oh, I love that.
Oh,
Vasa is paying off its namesake. That's great. That's a great story. So proceeds from your purchases of Vasa brand crisp bread.
Yes.
The preservation of military
Vasa
history,
brand
naval history,
ship.
badass history. I did look up the word for interesting in Swedish, it's intressant.
Oh, okay.
So
that tracks.
Yeah, easy.
Yeah.
That's a word that we could apply to this episode, I think.
Yes. Oh, very much so. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Pat, we do this every episode. What is the lesson that we can learn from the story of the Vasa?
Listen to your engineers.
Yes. Would have saved the destruction of the Vasa in the first place and was also instrumental in recovering the Vasa.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How can we apply this knowledge to making our lives more badass?
Listen to your engineers.
Yeah, listen to your engineers.
Listen
to your pros. Maybe you're not smarter than the people who actually know this stuff.
Listen to your engineers. Yeah.
Yeah. Ask for advice on things that you don't know what you're talking about. And when somebody who knows what they're talking about tells you the thing you want is impossible, just consider it. Just think about it maybe for a minute. You can get a second opinion from another person who knows what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. But when everybody who is trained in this thing tells you that what you want to do is stupid, maybe you should listen to your engineers. All right, Pat, thank you so much. It was awesome talking about this. Happy April Fools. I hope you managed to avoid all of your senior pranks. I will try to avoid my mother as much as possible today. And thanks to all of you out there for listening to this one. We hope you also don't get pranked, or conversely, that all of your pranks are successful.
Yes, listen to your engineers.
Listen to your engineers, especially while engineering pranks, so that you don't accidentally have them backfire on yourself. Mm-hmm. That's all the time we have. That's Badass of the Week. We do this every week. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please like and subscribe, and tell your friends about us, tell your enemies, prank people by subscribing them to our podcast without their knowledge. We approve this.
Is that legal? Anyway.
That's an excellent prank. They're going to be like, what is this awesome thing in my podcast feed?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Until then, we will see you next week. Thanks again. See you later.
Stay badass.
Badass of the Week is produced by High Five Content and $7 Productions. Executive producers are Dwayne Johnson, Danny Garcia, Andrew Jacobs, Hiram Garcia, Brian Gewirtz, Frankie Chaparino, and of course, me, Ben Thompson. Writing is by me and my semi-regular but always awesome co-host, Dr. Patricia Larish. Story editing by Ian Jacobs. Our mixing, music, and sound design is done by the incomparable Jude Brewer. Production support by Jean McHale-Waite. Badass of the Week is based on my website, badassoftheweek.com, where you can read all sorts of stories about other badasses. If you want to reach out with questions or ideas, you can email us at badasspodcast@badassoftheweek.com. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, follow, listen, tell your friends, and tell your enemies. And please leave us a review. If you want to support Badass of the Week, please check out our Patreon page. We'll be back next week with another one.
How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many
discount.
discounts will you stack up? Tap the banner or visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.